Right.
Man, in 1995, this would be so awesome.
Mind blowing.
Hey, welcome everybody. I am Justin. I'm with my brother Travis.
Hello.
On the channel See Nostalgia, we're doing another Let's Play. You know, we can't seem to keep too much, but I think this one has potential. I know it has potential. This is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. And this is based on a board game that was quite popular, I think.
Yeah, still is. Spawned multiple sequels. They came out in the 80s with a... It started out as a board game, actually. And had multiple cases released, and then they turned it into this game. And most recently, Asmodee, the board game company, picked up the rights to it and produced multiple additional boxes of cases. So it's very popular.
Yeah. I just remember playing it, and it's actually... Usually I don't have that much fun with board games, but this one was very engaging.
Yeah, well, not exactly a board game. Is more like a multiplayer, choose your own adventure book, and
well, yeah,
mystery.
I guess it was more than a map than a board. There were no pieces. There were no dice. It was just pages and a map. So, why don't we get... I love this magnifying glass. I wonder how they did that in 1994 or 3. I forget. Anyway, let's watch the intro.
Reminds me of MS Paint.
London is not a beautiful city.
Oh, come on.
Under the soot that covers its buildings is a teeming mass of 4 million souls trying to survive, mostly off of each other. You see it in the paper every day.
So cheery.
Thankfully, we have the London Times to keep us informed of all these troubling activities with an unbiased eye and razor-sharp accuracy. We find this publication to be of invaluable assistance in our investigations, and I'm sure you will as well. Among the forces of evil which run rampant in this city, there are also, thankfully, 2 groups of individuals who will aid us in our cause. As we do, they attempt to right wrongs and restore harmony and civility to the streets of London. The first of these groups is a ragtag association of young ruffians. I call them the Baker Street Irregulars. Don't let them fool you. They may be scruffy and ill-bred, but they are on the right side of the law. They can go everywhere, see everything, and overhear everyone. They are my eyes and ears in the streets of London, unquestionably a tremendous asset in our work. They will help us in our investigations if they can. The other group is a far more civilized collection of gentlemen and institutions. I call them the Baker Street Regulars. They, too, will be extremely useful in our work. At the start of any investigation, do keep in mind that it is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Unwittingly, one begins to twist facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts. The people and places to whom I will now introduce you will help us to collect the facts. May we use them wisely. Come, the game's afoot.
Is that supposed to be Sherlock?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Like he was wearing, like...
He did have the pipe as well.
He did have the pipe. Okay. Okay, this is just a...
So these are associates that we can contact to gain some insight and maybe some helpful advice.
All right.
I assume.
I think so, yeah. I think this is part of the tutorial, actually. So I think we're going to go get to the game proper.
All right.
The Mummy's Curse.
The Mummy's Curse. Made as well.
What rubbish! What balderdash!
You must have read something terribly disturbing, Watson, for you to be so overwrought this early in the morning.
Indeed, Holmes. It's irresponsible of the Times to play upon people's superstitions.
Ah, you must be referring to the affair of the Mummy's Curse.
Has the entire city in an uproar. 3 men dead, and they expect us to believe that a 4,000-year-old mummy was the murderer. I'm surprised you haven't taken some interest in this case, Holmes.
To the contrary, my dear Watson. I have made some inquiries, because I dare say I do believe this murderer is a much younger chap.
Younger chap.
Well,
Quite. Okay. So here's the play screen. Oh, I got a little pipe.
Nice pointer there. Perfect.
I believe these are these are the options. This is our notebook, directory, and our newspaper. This is to travel to any place we selected. This is whatever information we have file on a particular subject, and these are the irregulars, basically homeless network. And once we figure out we've got enough information, we go to this and conclude the case.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I guess we should check the paper first of all, because Dr. Watson was referring to the case of what he read about it in the paper.
Mm-hmm. So, actually, nowhere in the game does it actually tell you the current date. But I looked in the manual, and it is the 12th of April, 1889.
Well, I suppose earlier newspapers might have some tidbits of things that are still relevant today, but we'll see what happens.
So we do have a backlog.
Okay.
All right, so April 12th, that's our current one.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. Well, I have played around with the interface, so I know it's kind of quick to go through. You don't have to click on each one individually. You can use the arrow keys to kind of move around. Okay.
Right. There's births.
Births. We're not interested in births so much.
10th.
Marriages.
Yeah, there could be some suspects related to other people.
Deaths.
Oh, wait.
At Hong Kong? I don't think
a street or a building?
I
And wide of
think that's an Asian city.
Oh, okay.
And
news of his death came back to London, so nice. 3. Well, somebody was murdered, right? So maybe these deaths have the victim, or maybe yesterday's paper did.
Perhaps, I don't know.
Cautions, notices. Yeah, we may zip forward or cut out various parts of the newspapers because we wouldn't want half of the Let's Play to consist of us reading you these newspaper entries.
Aha!
The Mummy Strikes Again. The body of James Windibank. If we find his obituary from yesterday's paper, perhaps might give us his relatives and so forth. The body of James Windibank was discovered in the room he was preparing for the British Museum's
exhibit
of newly discovered artifacts from the tomb of
Catebet?
Catebet's mummy. The archaeologist was found strangled. Around his hand were linen bandages of the type used by the ancient Egyptians in wrapping mummies. Windibank's is the third murder to be associated with the mummy in the past 6 weeks. The archaeologist had accompanied the London University-sponsored expedition to Egypt. The project has been cursed with ill luck since the first discovery of the tomb several months ago. Its organizer, Dr. Ebenezer Turnbull, was murdered in the actual tomb itself in early March.
Okay.
Another archaeologist, Andrew Weatherby, met a similar fate on board the ship. Returning to England just last week, the Jardine ship Eastern Empress was the scene of that mysterious death.
Okay.
Shipboard. Investigation was handled by Captain Henry Ramsay's First Officer Luther Tenney. Scotland Yard declined to name any suspects at this time.
All right. So we got quite a bit of information here.
Yeah, and I'm like, what to keep track of?
I think the names. I have paper for us to write down.
All right.
I don't know if you want to be the designated. Well, since I'm at the controls.
Well, I don't know. Depends on how tired I get of it.
Well, we can trade off and on.
So, James
Windibank? Or Windabunk.
Was the victim.
Mm-hmm. In the British Museum.
Mm-hmm.
Catebet is the name of the mummy. I don't know if that's quite relevant. Well, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, who are the other people in the expedition?
Um.
Uh,
Okay.
London University sponsored.
Okay.
Dr. Ebenezer
Turnbull.
What a British name.
And he was killed in March. Another archaeologist, Andrew Weatherby.
Weatherby. Ship.
Killed on a ship. In the same MO.
A Jardine ship, as in from Jordan?
I think that's the company of the ship. Like the shipping company. Or the boating, whatever company that houses the Eastern Empress.
Okay. All right.
And Captain...
Investigated by...
Maybe you can just write down their last names. Ramsey and his first officer, Tenney.
Okay. Whew. Yeah,
Okay.
if we talk to them about maybe any mysterious conditions of Weatherby's death.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it mentioned that where'd it go? Turnbull was murdered in the actual tomb itself in early March.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if we have a paper coming from early March. Aha!
Behold.
Early
Yeah, there's
March.
quite the jumps. Well, the deaths are the first section, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. But we're looking for, like...
News.
And I think that's usually on the second page for some reason. Things were different in the 19th century. Well,
archaeologist in Mummy's Tomb, Karnak, March 4th.
Okay. Professor Ebenezer Turnbull, organizer of the Ketebet Tomb Expedition, was found dead in the tomb early this morning. The inner chamber was reached early in the year after much difficult labor, and the archaeologists were quite ecstatic over the excellent condition of the sarcophagus, chamber artifacts, and the Ketebet mummy itself. The party was in the final weeks of its work in the area when disaster struck. Mr. Turnbull had worked late into the night, remaining in the chamber alone after other members of his party had retired for the night. His body was discovered by Mr. Andrew Weatherby, although another of the project archaeologists, Mr. Turnbull, had been strangled to death. So Weatherby we already know of, right? He's the guy who...
He died on the ship.
Bringing
the mummy back.
Hmm.
So it's kind of strange to suspect him of Turnbull's death. But we'll see.
And, okay. Ancient Lennons again, strangled. Upon hearing of the professor's death, several of the natives working on the excavation called upon Isis and Osiris for protection and forgiveness for disturbing the sacred tombs. Inscriptions found on the canopic jars and doors indicate that his death may be the mysterious work of the ancient god Tumautef and his goddess Neith. Okay. So basically, Turnbull died March 4th in Karnak? Okay. All right, that's good information. So should we follow up on these leads right now, you think?
Yeah, sure.
What should we investigate first?
It'd be interesting to speak with the captain and first officer, Rousseau and Tenney, who found Weatherby's body on the ship.
Okay. Why don't we...
Because who was it who found the most recent body?
It was found in the museum
They didn't say who found
They
it?
didn't say who found it.
All right, so the captain and the first officer are the only living people that we are able to contact who have come across a murder victim.
Yeah, as far as we know.
I suppose, can we visit the coroner?
Yeah, I think he's one of the people that we know of. Let's get some information. Okay, this is the foreign news editor. Edward.
Oh, this is where Emmanuel would come in handy. Young barrister at the Old Bailey.
Barrister. Quentin. He reports on crime.
Probably not Inspector Lestrade. London Library. Sir Jasper Meek. HR. I think HR Murray.
Well, head chemist. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Criminology lab.
Should we visit him?
I don't know. Yeah, physical evidence from a crime. Okay.
Shall we?
Sure. Does it keep time of like how many moves we make, and we try to do it as few moves as possible?
I think so, but I don't know how
Okay.
efficient we can be.
Pettigrew wrote this book over 50 years ago, and there's still nothing better on the subject. Fascinating. Just fascinating. And what can I do for you today, Whitson?
It's Watson, sir.
Watson, yes, of course.
We're interested in what you may have learned about this mummy case.
Oh, so these days it's mummies you're chasing down with that fella Holmes.
It's Holmes, sir.
This is what I said now, isn't it, Whitson?
Yes, I believe you did, sir.
Let me show you what I found so far. This is the bit of linen that was found round the neck of James Windibank. I examined it thoroughly, and it is quite old, perhaps thousands of years. However, it is not the murder weapon.
Are you certain of that?
Aye. The linen is quite old, but it's not at all strong enough to strangle a grown man.
Very interesting, sir.
I also found something quite fascinating. Take a look through this glass. Do you see those short hairs on the fabric?
They look precisely like hairs.
Of course they look like hairs. But what kind of hairs? They're not human hairs. They're dog hairs. Now, look at this. This piece of linen was found round the neck of the victim on board the ship. Well, his name was Leatherby or something. It is also quite old, and on it I found more hairs.
More dog hairs?
No, my dear man, monkey hairs. I've not yet been able to identify the precise species, but it's just extraordinary, isn't it?
Quite. But what do you think it all means?
Well, I'm not the sort who likes to jump to conclusions, Whitson. But I can assure you that neither of these bandages were the murder weapons.
Dog and monkey hair.
Dog and monkey hairs. So, did ancient Egyptians mummify pets?
Cats. Or perhaps the murderer works in a zoo.
Ooh. But why would they? Well,
and they just have hair on them.
That could be. All right. So, what line of inquiry should we follow next?
Well, we still haven't found someone who, is there a coroner who looked at the bodies or the murder scene?
I think that's the guy.
Did the inspector, review the murder scene, or can we go to the murder scene?
I think we can go to the murder scene. It happened in the museum.
The British Museum.
So let's look for British Museum. Aha. Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Should we send the homeless boys?
We might get kicked out of the museum.
Yeah, they might.
Okay.
I think the scene of the crime is probably important enough for us to witness eye to eye.
Indeed.
Windibank's body was found in the mummy's case.
Inside it?
Precisely. One of the guards, Henry Witherspoon, discovered it when making his rounds.
Witherspoon.
He noticed that the lid was askew and a hand was sticking out of it. By the look on his face when he came to summons me, he must have thought that the mummy was attempting to leave its resting place. Some of the guards have been a bit on edge, since the stories about Dr. Turnbull's death.
What happened when you arrived at the scene?
Witherspoon assisted me in removing the lid. And there was the body of James Winterbank. Around his neck was a bandage of linen.
And the mummy was missing?
No, it was in there too. Underneath poor Winterbank, completely undisturbed, not a length of its sheeting unraveled.
Who had access to the exhibit room?
Well, the room was officially closed yesterday while we set up the exhibit, but the museum was open and we took no extraordinary precautions to keep people out.
Can you think of anyone who might have wanted to kill Winterbank?
None at all. I actually didn't know him very well. He did work for the museum, you see. He was with the London University. The university and the museum were joint sponsors of the Ketterbeck expedition.
Mr. Johnson, can you think of anything whatsoever that might shed some light on this affair?
No, I'm very sorry. I can't think of a thing. I only hope that all this publicity doesn't keep people away from the exhibit.
All this publicity.
Publicity.
So,
now, something that occurred to me earlier was that now the original guy died at the archaeology site. And it's like, well, maybe it was one of his assistants or something who wanted more of the glory themselves, or they wanted to steal something, from the tomb or what have you. And then maybe, on the trip back, maybe, another guy died, Turnbull died. Maybe that was the same murderer trying to thin the crowd even more, or maybe it was maybe Turnbull was the original murderer, and then he revealed that to somebody who murdered him.
Turnbull was the guy who died in Egypt.
Oh yeah, sorry,
Weatherby.
Weatherby was on the ship. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's possible there's more than one murderer, is what I'm saying.
Oh, I get it.
That subsequent murderers might have just taken the idea and ran with it.
I see.
And an earlier murderer might now be deceased, for example. So when we were looking back at the papers, I noticed there was actually something about, I don't know if it's worth going to dig for right now, but there was something about funding. It was mentioned several times that the London University had funded this expedition, but there was also something about a court case or a disagreement over funding between companies. I forget if the university was mentioned.
Was that on today's paper?
Yeah, it was.
Well, let's skim really quick. Okay, these are births, marriages, deaths, illness,
causes and notices,
cautions, essence of beef, for invalids, American visitors, Henrietta Cloth,
Hudson's China, no. Beware of imitations. Oh, the facsimile renderings of Egyptian artifacts, Anubis and Company, Cairo. I wonder if maybe somebody could have tried to sell them an artifact from this expedition. But that might be a wild goose chase. There might not be a strong enough connection to waste time.
Constable died in France.
Where to the deaths?
Ladies submarine in Germany.
I forget which paper. Maybe it was the other
the
paper.
Indignant Blind.
If it was the other paper, we'll edit this section out.
I'm pretty sure it was this paper.
Oh, you think you... Oh, London Westminster Loan and Discount Company. Oh, it's an ad telling people that you can take loans. Maybe that's mutual fund.
Shooting party in Scotland. Stage is a perfect. I'm not sure.
Oh well. Anyway, never mind.
Okay.
We'll probably cut that part out.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Okay.
I wonder if can we talk to the guard himself rather than talking to his shady boss?
Yeah, what was his name?
Was Witherspoon.
Witherspoon.
I guess not. I suppose maybe we could go speak to a relation of one of the deceased. James Widdebank, we could go check his home for evidence, perhaps.
What about London University? They were the second financiers of the trip.
Yes.
And that's our dog. Mailman's probably here, right? Okay. Shall we go to London University?
I guess I'm not sure how much there's to talk about there. I mean, they financed the trip. They're looking to get something back for their investment, perhaps?
Well, I think the professors, weren't they part of London University that went on this trip?
Yeah. Maybe there was more people on the trip than we're aware of. Okay.
Okay.
Into our carriage.
Such a tragedy. Fine men all, and such outstanding scholars. I still can't quite get over the shock of it.
We understand.
Professor, we're looking for background information on these three men so that we can understand how their murders might tie together.
Well, let me begin with Dr. Turnbull. Ebenezer Turnbull was responsible for organizing the Carteret expedition. Quite a remarkable man, really. This was the first time he teamed up with James Windibank. Professor Windibank was one of our most popular lecturers. In fact, several of his former students were also eager to accompany him. I recall him saying that he was having difficulty choosing. Weatherby turned out to be the lucky one. Though it seems far from it now, doesn't it? I suppose Smith and Travis turned out to be the lucky ones after all.
Smith and Travis.
Smith and Travis?
Peter Smith accepted the invitation to join another expedition. As for Philip Travis, he was quite keen on accompanying Professor Windibank. In fact, he became exceedingly upset when Andrew Weatherby, a postgraduate student in the department, was chosen instead. Took it rather personally, I should say.
Well, then.
So there were 3 students, and Weatherby was selected, and Smith and Travis were not. Okay.
Weatherby died on the ship, though, which would be strange. Smith, he said, was accepted a position on a different expedition. Is it possible that expedition came back on the same ship, though? I don't know. They clearly want us to suspect Travis.
Always suspect Travis.
Uh-huh.
All right. So, yeah, so 3 men, 2 professors, 1 student, 2 people that were not selected for various reasons.
Yes. So they might have reason to smear the name of the expedition and have it end catastrophically.
So we